Alright guys, we're back on the build here. Let me just turn off my little finger lights. These things come in really handy. It was a gift from Mrs. Sonic's Models, and really cool. You press the button here, you have lights that you can aim in whatever direction you're working. It really helps out with the view. They just strap around your hand and give you a really cool sci-fi look. So anyway, neat tool. You guys might want to think about it. Maybe I'll post up the picture of the box here. You guys can check them out. Pretty sure they're available on Amazon. But this is what we're really here to talk about. If you take a look, I have the interior installed. Now, I mentioned before that I had to install my own pegs for locating the interior approximately where I wanted it. Now, you have to come in this way into the rear wheel well and slide the interior in until you get it right where you want it, where this is where these pegs come in handy. And then there is absolutely no locating position for this interior anywhere in the front of the car. So you're pretty much up to your own devices to figure out where that's going to go.
We'll figure something out.
So, but since I have my tabs here, which I use to locate the rear of it, I glued that down here, put some glue on the sides here, and then just started pouring a little bit of glue on each side here so that it would grab the front of the interior, which it didn't do very well here. And holds it in position pretty much while you try and figure out where you're going to put, how you're going to attach the chassis. Which again, there's no locating points, no positions to pin it down. I think that the radiator, once it gets mounted in here, is going to dictate the height of the front end, which means that I can't even put the wheels or anything on until I figure out where this is all going to sit. But another interesting note is that I think this chassis is too long for this body, as this is the line where I think this chassis should have ended. They used a longer chassis for this car. Who knows for what reason?
It's cheaper.
Probably because they had it tooled up for another model. Because when you install this chassis, and let me see if I can get it in there. May as well attempt it because we have to try and see if it'll fit anyway as we're putting it together. Really got to flex the body quite a bit. I'm going the wrong way. I find it easier just to insert the front first, which I'm not sure how well that's going to work when the radiator support is in there. Then flex the rear. Flex out the rear quarter here and here. And as I said, this model is not for the faint of heart, because you really got to make certain things fit. So here we have the chassis in the car, and if we push this as far forward as it'll go, which is just about there, which centers our rear tires nicely, then we run into this, which, you see how long that chassis is?
That's quite big. Impressive.
It sticks out of the back. There's no way we're getting that rear bumper to sit there with the lower valance. So it looks to me like I'm going to have to cut it just ahead of the fuel tank in order to make everything fit. Again, it's just one of the things about this kit, which is probably why I will probably never build another one. Some challenges and some kits are fun, and some just become a tedious, monotonous nightmare as you're trying to get everything together. And then I've got to figure out why the kit sits kind of lopsided. You see this, guys?
Oh man, that is just wrong.
So I'm going to have to put spacers in it in order to even out the chassis so that it sits straight. because, as I said, there are no locating positions for anything here. So once I figure out where I need this to be so that the wheels are even on both sides, I can work with installing some sprue there to even out and give the chassis a place to actually mount to. Yeah, this kit has been an adventure, but we're going to keep going with it. Okay, guys, now we have the firewall installed, and that also was another nightmare to get in there correctly. Now, I did discover one thing. I didn't think there was anything that would lock the front of this in place, but after I installed the firewall and glued it to the interior cabin. Now, let me go backtrack a little bit. In the instructions, which I'll put up right here, it says that they want you to glue the firewall to the interior tub before you insert it into the car. Worst thing you could possibly do.
Don't do it!
What you want to do is install your interior first, and then what you're going to do is you're going to take the firewall and lay it inside. It's going to squeeze in. It's going to be a very tight fit around the edges here and here. As you can see there, how it's squeezed up against the body of the car. Now, that's going to help you in a couple of ways. As far as I'm imagining right now, is that it spreads the body out just a little bit more, so that when you try and put the interior in, it might be just a little bit easier. And it also helps that when you install this, you put your cement all on the front of the interior tub, install your firewall, and it actually helps to lock the front of the interior into place if you do it this way as opposed to how the instructions want you to do it. Which, whoops, I mean, did I just damage my... I may have to bare metal foil that again. I think I just damaged my bare metal foil there.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Okay, hey, well, those things happen. So we will be bare metal foiling that again. Anyway, as I was saying before I so rudely interrupted myself, the firewall helps to lock the interior tub into the car so that you don't have to worry about the front of it dropping out on you as you're moving it around and installing everything. So let's keep going with this build, and also be very careful as to not get super glue, because you're going to be using a lot of super glue to hold this thing together, because this thing's a mess. So be careful not to get it on your paint, as I did here, which I'm going to have to now wet sand that down a little bit, polish it out. And I also did here, which I repaired, and here, which I repaired, and here when the front end snapped off. Yeah, guys, this is not this is an adventure. Okay, something rattling there. Okay, so now I want to talk to you about installing the grill and the lights. This whole one-piece assembly here, because you have to put the firewall in for the radiator, which they also wanted you to put in on an earlier step, which I also recommend you do not do. This is going to it'll pretty much just press fit into the front of the car and stay there. You can add a little bit of glue. I would recommend just putting a little bit right in the center there, just to hold it in. But one thing I wanted to tell you is that on the real car, this grill assembly comes out only as far as the nose. It doesn't extend it past it. But if you see here, if you make the mistake that I was initially going to make of pushing this in all the way, it extends past the nose of the car. Now, if we take a look at Mr.mo's car, which I'm going to put right here, you can see that the grill should be flush with the nose of the car, not extend past it. There we go. Now, and everything just about there should sit exactly the way it should in the car. There we go. I'm happy with that fitment right there. And that looks a bit more realistic than what was going on before with them sticking out like two, large nostrils. Now, once you put a little bit of glue in there to hold everything in, your next step is going to be to install the radiator support. Now, the radiator support goes into these two tabs, both on the left and on the right. And then, just like the firewall, once you install it into those two tabs, you're just going to turn it upward and squeeze it in between the front end of the car. Now, you got to be real careful because, like it's happened to me several times as I was test fitting, you can snap the joint where the front end of the car meets the fenders right off. So, but that's what you're going to get when you're done. And then the panel that we made to overlap will slide in right there, if I can do it without knocking everything loose, and cover up that empty space. So that'll be a bit more realistic, a bit more like the real car, and have that space covered up so you don't have that big empty gap looking into all of the parts you just glued in there. So, but I think what I am going to do is shave down a little bit of the radiator support because I can't get it to sit perfectly straight, as it is just a little bit too wide on the bottom for the radiator to sit perfectly flat. I mean, as you can see there, it's got a little bit of a lean to the front, which these cars didn't have. So I'm going to do that, sand it down a little bit so that we get a proper fit. But as you see, now we're starting to enclose the engine compartment. So it's starting to look a little bit better than that little tiny, I mean, the engine looked tiny sitting in there all alone. So if we look at it now the engine compartment is a lot smaller and doesn't give us so much negative space. So that's the plan. Whether it's going to work right, I don't know, but that's my plan and I'm sticking to it. So let's just take this apart and this apart. And we'll pop the nose out. And we'll get busy with putting a little bit of glue in and putting this thing together. Okay guys, now looking at the way the chassis sits in the car, I'm gotta see what the difference is here. Okay, here we've got a little under 1/2 inch, and here we've got 1/2 inch. So you see the difference in there, which is going to make for a very weird looking twisted chassis. So what I did was I evened it out to about 1/2 inch each side, where I think you can see where I put the scratches in there. That's where I'm going to lay my strips of styrene to make a bridge. Let's go, that's a little more than 1/2 inch. It's almost 1/2 inch there, and this one's gonna have to come up here. Okay. I don't know if this is gonna work. This chassis really just wanna. Because the chassis itself is not warped. It just doesn't fit straight in the body. Which is why we gotta kind of make it want to fit. Okay, now what I'm gonna use to make my little ridges for the chassis to sit on is some evergreen plastic sprue, which I'm gonna lay right here over the marks that I just made. Now that's gonna give me that ridge that I need to prevent the chassis from riding up. So hopefully if I've marked everything down correctly, shouldn't have any trouble with building a mounting point or into this model that okay guys, now we have the chassis is installed in the car, which was no easy feat, let me tell you. The fit was atrocious. I spoke about how much longer the rear of the chassis was. This is what I had to cut off of it just to get it to fit within the body. So this is obviously a chassis from one of their larger cars, which they've just repurposed as a chassis in this model. Because this is just ridiculous that you have to cut this much off the chassis to make it fit the car. The lower valance in the rear bumper will cover that, so you don't have to worry about it being visible. But I mean, come on, guys, that's just insane. Now, let me show you guys what I did here. You can see those. Let me give you a little light. Maybe you can see it a little bit better. There we go. We're looking inside there. You can see those styrene, what do I call those? Styrene rods that I put in there. And that's going to keep the chassis level in the back of the car. I may have to add one more here, depending on how the wheels sit, in order to keep the chassis from moving around too much as we're putting it together. And that's going to hopefully even out our tires, as I had an issue with one side being much lower than the other. And speaking of tires, that brought about an entirely different problem with this kit. Don't know if I've touched on it before, but these are the wheels. They're about to get a bright coat of Revell chrome on the outer trim rings. They didn't fit in the kit tires with the wheel backings because the wheels, as we see here, the height of the wheel, they were too tall, and if you put the wheel back on, it would push the wheel out of the tire for the front wheels. The rears fit, don't know how or why, but they did fit. So the fronts, there was just no way that I could make that fit and look good. So I started looking through my stash of parts, and lo and behold, I have BF Goodrich tires And these tires come from the Pontiac Fiero kit. And I just started looking through Mr.mo's pictures, and I thought he had Goodyear tires on his car, but take a look at this right here, guys. I'm going to put a picture of his car right there. He's actually got BF Goodrich on there. So this is actually going to be more accurate and correct for his car. And these tires being a bit wider than the ones that came with the GTO kit, the wheels and wheel backing plates fit perfectly in there. So this car is going from Goodyear to BF Goodrich tires because it's the only thing I could find to make it fit, and it just happens to be 100% appropriate for Mr.mo's car. Now I've cleaned up just about all of these super glue marks that I had in the body, and with the chassis in there, then it's going to come time to fit the bumper. Hopefully that fits. Just hoping that at least one piece of this car won't fight me. And then it's going to be making a tonneau cover for the convertible top and the rear wing, which I'm going to have to fabricate from scratch. Then there's supposed to be a bunch of details that I wanted to add to the engine compartment because I'm really not happy with what's going on in there. Let me show you guys what I mean. Alright guys, if you look at the engine compartment, you can see here how far back the engine sits from the radiator. Now, I did install the radiator where the kit tells you to, in the nose of the car. And when you install the chassis and everything in the car, look at how much space there is between the radiator and the engine. That just does not look right. So I don't think I can move that now because that's glued into the nose, and I don't want to risk breaking this GTO nose, which was again another bit of a nightmare to get together. So that I'm probably going to have to leave that way. It does not have a upper radiator hose, even though the radiator, if you look real close there, has an opening to attach a hose. So I'm going to try and fabricate one to put one in there so that it doesn't look too silly. And then the radiator shroud, there is no radiator shroud in this kit. So if I can get one to fit in there, I will build one. And at least that'll cover some of this huge gap of space between the engine and the radiator. And there are a bunch of other details that I want to add to the engine compartment. And if I have time, I'm going to try and have that done before the show. If not, then we'll just take it to the show and I'll add all those details later. But for now, let me give you guys a look at the partially completed car. Let's drop the hood on. I love those magnets. The hood just pops right in. But you can get somewhat of an idea of what it's going to look like with that shiny, gleaming red paint. So I'm real happy with the way it's coming out, despite all of the flaws. And some of them of my making, 99% of them of the kit's making. But I'm really liking the way it looks. The paint has an amazing shine to it. That's Tamiya bright red with Tamiya TS13 clear. And it just looks amazing. It looks almost die cast. So, guys, I'm going to go and get some sleep because it is now 2:43 in the morning. And tomorrow I've got a big day of painting these wheels and figuring out the last few details on this car that I can hopefully get done if it doesn't fight me anymore. So I'm going to end this video here. And we'll be back for more disasters on this build. Man, this is a tough one. This might be the one that breaks me. Okay, guys, I will see you on the next one.